Hey, this is Robert Borton, CEO of Classical Conversations. Excited to be here today. Make sure you like and share this video and comment below. I'm talking with Reese Tabor of Southwest Baptist University, located in Missouri,
That's
about
right.
20 minutes from Springfield. Is that right?
Yeah, we're about 25, 30 minutes north of Springfield. If you're not too familiar with Missouri, it's about 2 hours south of Kansas City.
Okay,
It's the closest biggest town.
nice. Yeah, and it's interesting because Kansas City is actually split between Kansas and Missouri, which I didn't know until I went and visited Kansas City, and everyone was telling me I was in Missouri. I was like, why is it called Kansas City?
Good question.
But awesome. Now tell me, you were homeschooled for a while yourself, and
Yeah,
how did you get to your alumni, and now you're working at Southwest Baptist? So tell me a little bit about your story.
Yeah. So I was homeschooled from first grade through 12th grade. I did public school in kindergarten, but so I don't think that completely makes me a homeschool purist. But my older sister was a few grades above me, and she was just coming home with a lot of homework and started listening to some of the things that the teachers are saying that my parents weren't terribly excited about. So we decided to do the homeschooling route, and I was homeschooled all the way through. I absolutely loved it. I was in a lot of different homeschool co-ops because we moved around a little bit. I was even a part of a classical school, really, really similar to Classical Conversations for a full year. And then we moved out of that because we moved to a different state, and we found a homeschool co-op that was really, really well suited to what we were wanting to do, and that stuck. So homeschooled all the way through. My senior year rolled around. I knew that I wanted to go to I really wanted to go to a Christian school. That was my desire, to go to a school that had a similar background to what I had experienced, either through the homeschool world or through my own family. And through that search, I actually took a gap year between high school and college. God just didn't lead me anywhere right out of high school, and it was the right thing to do for me. So I took a gap year. I worked pretty much full time, saving up some money, and then during that gap year, I got an offer to be on the speech and debate team for Southwest Baptist University. So SBU actually has the winningest speech team in the nation. So we have 12 national championships competing against
Awesome.
large schools, small schools all over the U.S. So it's a lot of fun to be on a team that wins.
Yes.
So I did speech and debate. That's what brought me to SBU. That's what kept me there. And then my senior year, I met and fell in love with my now wife, and I wanted to stick around the campus a little bit. And the position for admissions counselor was available when I was graduating, and God just worked it out. And it was an incredible transition because I found a family at SBU. I found something that was truly unique and special. And now I get to work with other families to help them go through that journey and find their way to the university. And specifically within my role in admissions, I am the homeschool liaison, or the homeschool advocate. So because I was homeschooled and because I do recognize the value of a homeschool education, those in the office were like, Reese, you get to work with homeschoolers. I'm like, cool. That works just fine. So I helped develop tools that work with the transition. I go to a lot of the classical conversation practicums around Missouri, and we were trying to get into the states surrounding Missouri, and then COVID hit. So wasn't able to do that. But I also try to connect with other homeschool groups around the state, and I work with families that are homeschooled when they come on campus every now and again, just making sure that they get their questions answered. And when they hear that someone was homeschooled and they went through the process, they're like, oh, you kind of know what we were going through. So it makes it nice, makes it easy. So
That's awesome.
yeah, that's a very abridged version of my full story. There's a lot of really cool things that God did in between that, but that's kind of the high points.
Yeah, I love that's just a testimony of going through a gap year program or just taking a gap year and letting God work, and that's okay. And I know with the
Yeah.
COVID stuff going on, there's a lot of people just kind of looking at alternatives to online education this fall.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I was excited just looking through y'all's website and seeing you guys have like a 1 to 12 student to teacher ratio and about 1,600 students, it looks like, on campus at your
So
main campus.
we have about 13 to 1400 on the main Bolivar campus.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Nice.
it's a really good size. And like what you're saying, that 12-to-1 student-teacher ratio, and you can hear that number, but if you stop and think about it, there's one professor for every 12 students. And so that provides the opportunity for relationships to develop in a really unique way, and much more similar environment to what homeschool families are associated with, versus going to a state school where there's, one professor to 30 kids, and maybe you're in a class of 300 and you never even get to connect with your professor. Whereas at SBU, your professors get to know you, and they care about you. They know your names. They know what's going on in your life. Like, there are so many times I had professors more concerned about me, my spiritual and personal life, than they were about my grades. And yet at the same time, they were able to make sure I was exactly where I needed to be academically. So those resources are wonderful, because when you get to know professors, they hear about jobs or internship opportunities, and they can pass that along, say, hey, Robert, I know you're interested in this. I heard one of my colleagues talking about this opportunity. I think you should try it out. So that relationship just provides a lot of really unique value in any small school setting, not just SBU. There's a lot of small schools that can boast that same thing.
Yeah, well, that's what we do at Classical Conversations and our challenge programs at 1-to-12 ratio. So, that sounds good to us, and something that our students are real familiar with, having those smaller class sizes, but still being able to debate and do those things, which I know that they love, and something that we talk about a lot is those presentation skills and really cultivating those. So when I was going to college, there was actually schools that wouldn't take homeschool students, and parents still today are like, how can I get my kids into college? But there's schools like yours who have admissions counselors just seeking homeschool students. So, like, why do you think Classical Conversation students are a good fit for SBU?
Yeah, so there's a number of reasons. First, to just reiterate what you were saying, I looked at a number of schools that offered only 1 or 2 scholarships for homeschool students, and the rest of them are just expected to, full pay. But with SBU, not only did they offer me a scholarship, they wanted me here. Like, SBU actively seeked me out, not only because I was a homeschool student, but because they just care about everyone. But in regards to your question specifically, the reason why I believe a lot of students from Classical Conversations would succeed at SBU is because we have a lot of students who have gone through Classical Conversations, succeed in marvelous ways at the university. One of my really good friends, Stephanie Holloway, went through the Classical Conversations program, went to SBU, and now she's a teacher. And she does an incredible job, and she's loving it. And that experience that she had is very similar to what a lot of my friends and those who I've known that have gone through CC have experienced by going through SBU, is that what you learn through the challenge programs, the way that you learn, matches with the way SBU provides education, because SBU is a challenging university. Academically, it is difficult, but going through CC provides the tools to learn that does make you a successful student at the university. Also, about 6.5% of all of our students are homeschool students. And so that is a good chunk of our population. I don't know, I'm trying to get that number up as high as I can. But that there are a large number of homeschool students on campus. And so there's a community there of, like, pretty much in any friend circle, someone can say, oh, I was homeschooled. And someone else is like, hey, I was homeschooled too. And it's just this fun companionship that you get. And so right now there was a couple of other admissions counselors that recently rotated out that were homeschooled, and they would always talk about, like, oh, as homeschoolers, it's that fun relationship, that connection. So I believe CC students do well because there are a lot of CC students that have gone through SBU and been successful, and there's the methods that are used to teach align marvelously with the teaching objectives of the university.
Nice. I like, even though it's a smaller Christian university, you guys still have 13 undergrad majors and all sorts of different offshoots from those. And
yeah, so overall we have about, depending on how you look at it, between 80 and 90 academic programs on campus.
Wow.
So there are, from education, which is our largest degree on campus. So if you look at teachers in Southwest Missouri and you just look at an aggregate, there are so many who have gone through SBU's program, not just for the undergrad, but for graduate, master, specialist, doctorate. And there's so many superintendents that have gone through SBU's education program. So education is really big. And then there are programs kind of on the other end, like a physical therapy, a doctorate of physical therapy is a strong program that we have on campus. Well, more along the lines of like preparing students for a doctorate of physical therapy. So we get undergraduate students studying biology, kinesiology, something like that, so they can get into our PT school. But we also have the sciences as well. We have strong sciences. One of my friends recently graduated from her master's degree in hydrologics, whatever the study of water is. And so she was able to be successful, and she got research experience while she was working on her undergrad here. And I got a communication degree. So, and there's degrees all across the board, from the humanities to the hard sciences to social sciences and pretty much anything in between. And for the most part, if a student walks up to me and said, "Hey, Reese, I think I'm interested in studying this," most of the time I can say, "Yeah, we've got that here. Let me tell you more about it."
That's awesome. So that's a nice Christian school, small student to professor ratio. And what are a couple other things maybe you'd want people to know about your school that stand out that they might not know just checking out the website?
Yeah, so I think the biggest piece that can't be written down or can't be experienced or can't be read or like just seen from a video or from a website is an actual experience of being on campus. And what students get when they're on campus is about as close as I can say is a family, because there are so many opportunities for relationships, good, solid Christian relationships to be created, both from a professor to student perspective, but also student to student perspective. We have incredible, just an incredible amount of people who their biggest desire is to see the students succeed. And they're wise enough to realize that that's not just going to come in by learning something and passing a test. It's success that comes from relationships. It's success that comes from practical experience and a challenge to move beyond what we think we're capable of. And sometimes it's a challenging students to do things maybe they weren't interested in doing. So one of my good friends who came in the same year that I did was not at all interested in studying English. She just didn't care about English. She didn't want to study English, but she was required to take one English course or two English courses for the undergraduate graduation requirements. And she got into the first class and fell in love. And now, well, when she graduated, she had an English degree. So there are opportunities to grow beyond what we can imagine, and that comes out in a lot of the way that the professors pour into each and every individual student. So yes, we have a lot of degrees. We have a small student teacher ratio. We have all the stats that you could ever want to say, hey, this is a good school. But we also have the professors to back that up, and we have the leadership to provide the vision that allows us to be successful in ways that are intangible, but that are completely life-changing. I have friends who are all over the world serving in missions. I have friends who are working in business, making a difference with people's loans, or opening up a banking account. And I have friends who are teachers and leading the charge for wrangling a bunch of kindergartners and trying to teach them how to read. That there's so many different ways that the university has prepared students to go out into the world and become servant leaders and equip them to be that servant leader in a successful, meaningful way.
I love that. I know a topic on a lot of parents' minds now is just paying for school.
Yeah.
And of course, Christian private schools, I always think, oh, that's a hefty price tag. But I saw that, your average student receives almost $27,000 in scholarships. You guys give away almost $24 million in scholarships per year.
Yeah.
So tell us, are there scholarships for CC students or homeschool students, or ones that you see homeschool students getting more of? Or tell us about that financial aid process that you guys are so generous with.
Good question. So I'll start kind of at the top and address how we do financial aid. And you're right. So we give a little over $23.5 million in financial aid every year. And that $27,000 number was actually from 2 years ago. This current year is $28,000.
Awesome.
So we have a lot of very generous donors that have given to the university that help make that number possible. And we also recognize that education is expensive. And it is a partnership of us coming alongside a family to help them in that financial regard. So the overall, the financial aid is set up on a stacking structure. So every single student that gets admitted is offered an academic scholarship based off of a combination of high school GPA and then either the ACT, CLT, or SAT, one of those tests. And there's a matrix, and we set it up, and there's 4 different levels of scholarship, ranging from this year is $9,500 to $12,500. And then our top tier students are invited to a scholarship competition where they can either compete for a full tuition scholarship or for just extra aid that can go on their award. And then there's scholarships available for students who participate in activity like speech and debate or theater or music or art, or there's athletic aid as well. So we have a lot of homeschool students who either did football or maybe even tennis or soccer that were involved, or track and field. I know there's a lot of homeschool students that do track and field. And we have many of those students on our teams participating at a college level and receiving a scholarship for it. And so everything stacks. And then, of course, we evaluate the FAFSA, which is the free application for federal student aid. So for you homeschool families that have not done the FAFSA yet, I'm sorry, it's a bear. It's just this long form that just asks about finances and taxes and stuff, but that gives us a number and an understanding of a family's financial situation where we can add on either extra grants or extra scholarships that can put on there. So specific scholarships for either CC or homeschool students, we don't have anything that is labeled that yet. I'm always hopeful that will work. We're always looking at providing opportunities and maybe moving things around a little bit. But many families who are homeschool students, generally, and on average, homeschool students score higher on standardized tests and have higher GPAs than their public school counterparts. And so it's more likely that a homeschool student will be in those top tiers of scholarship and be invited to that scholarship competition. So I often see homeschool families earning exceptional awards. And if you compare 2 students that would otherwise be similar, but one was homeschooled, one was public schooled, then I would expect the public school student to not pull in as many scholarships as the homeschool student.
Awesome. Well, I like how that system is worked, that you guys have that set up. Seems very equitable and fair, and gives everyone that chance to earn as much as they can. So I love that. Is there anything, advice that you'd give to these families that are maybe have sophomores or juniors or rising seniors as they look at their future college plans, as far as either preparing for those scholarships and or just picking an institution or a school that will really benefit them?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think there's a lot of things that parents can be doing now at whatever age they're looking at, but especially those with sophomores, juniors, and seniors. I think the biggest thing and the best piece of advice I could give is learn about the schools that are either close to you or learn about the programs that your students are interested in and find schools that have those programs. And then as you're on that search, go and visit those schools. Like, get out, actually get on campus, meet with someone, either if it's an admissions counselor or someone from an office of admissions, but try and find out if there's someone like, so at SBU, we have admissions counselors that are like a one-stop shop. If someone from, and I work specifically with the families from Kansas City area and like the Northwest Missouri area. So if someone from Kansas City applies to SBU, then I work with that family the entire way through, from that application to enrollment, housing, financial aid, everything in between. And so finding someone like that or a university that has that set up makes it really easy for you guys, because it takes a lot of the pressure of figuring out all those things. It takes that pressure off you and puts it on the university. So when I get a family that applies, that's a homeschool family, I work with them and say, hey, here's your next steps. Here's what you need to do. Here's your timeline, that sort of thing. So that's kind of my biggest piece of advice. So just learn about the schools that you're interested in, your students are interested in, and go and visit, meet with people. Also, and there's a lot of things you can be doing academically and in regards to extracurricular activities as well. And have your students take standardized tests as soon as they can. I took the ACT when I was in 8th grade, and I got a horrible score, but I was familiar with the test, and I took it every year after that, and eventually got a very good score. You know, the CLT has options for students to take the CLT in as early as 8th or 9th grade. I'm not exactly 100% positive how young students can.
Yeah, I think 8th grade or 10th grade. Yeah, I
Something
know they
like that.
released a new version for like a BSAT type thing. So yeah, that's what I did too. We did it in the SAT in North Carolina, but I think a lot of people think that colleges are going to look at all of your scores, but you actually typically just look at your best scores, and sometimes a composite of your best scores.
Sometimes, but that's not as common anymore.
Yeah. So take it early and often.
Yeah, that's true. Because with any standardized test, the more familiar you are with it, the better scores you can get, and it helps with scholarships, not just with the university you're looking at, but also with outside scholarships of like doing an online essay contest or online scholarships for just the general student. Those higher test scores are oftentimes what can earn a better scholarship. There's also a lot of ways that you can be planning now for academics. You can take CLEP tests. If you're not familiar with CLEP tests, it's an acronym, CLEP, College Level Examination Program, I think is what it stands for. It's an acronym, but it's like a test for a course you never took. I bought a book on U.S. History 1, studied for 3 weeks, took a test, and then got 3 hours of college credit. And it was great. So you can test out of things your students are familiar with. You can have your students be involved in music or theater or speech, art, and those things can provide opportunities for scholarships. You can do dual credit. So dual credit, and there's a lot of schools that have dual credit offerings. SBU has dual credit classes that are specifically made for homeschool families that are taught by a professor, but at your own rate. And if students do 2 or more dual credit classes, there's a scholarship that you can receive for that as well. So yeah, a lot of different things you can do. If you look at our website, sbuniv.edu/homeschool, you'll find a whole list of things that you can be doing now. And there's a video that I created that has a lot more of this information, but in more specific detail.
I love that you got a homeschool landing page just to recruit these hardworking moms and dads, these kids that they've been pouring into, and you guys want them at your university. That's just such a testimony to the work that they're doing, that you guys recognize and want their students, and think that they're a
Actually,
value add.
my friend that I mentioned earlier, Stephanie, who did CC, there's a little blurb that she wrote up that's on that page that just explains her experience there. So it is really neat, and it is very helpful. And on that page, there's a sample homeschool transcript. So there are a lot of homeschool families who aren't as familiar with making high school transcripts, but there's a document you can download there, and you can put in the classes, and it can create a transcript in a GPA, and you can submit that as an official transcript anywhere your student's interested in, not just SBU. So there's another resource that a lot of our homeschool families really enjoy.
Nice. Well, Reese, thanks for taking time with us today and telling us the ins and outs of SBU and how to get your kids into college, and just some tips for families to pick a university or college or institution that's really going to benefit them and their lifelong goals. So just thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for doing what you do. CC is an incredible program, and I know there's a lot of really good things you guys do. So keep it up. You guys are doing good stuff.
Thank you, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, like I said, give it a thumbs up, big thumbs up, and then make sure that you like it and share it with your friends, and give us a comment below, because we need families to continue that Christian education beyond K through 12, and it's great that we have these wonderful partners to be with. So thank you so much, Reese. Have a great day. God bless.
Thanks.